Welcome to Technology Tools to Enhance Legal Services for Limited English Proficient Communities, websites, videos, and more. Thank you so much for joining. We have a fantastic and knowledgeable group of presenters today, so I'm excited to introduce them. We have Kathy Daniels, who is the IT Administrator at Statewide Legal Services in Connecticut, and she'll be discussing the organization's Photonovela project. We have Rochelle Klempner, who serves as Chief Counsel of the New York State Access to Justice Program, and she'll be talking to us about challenges of maintaining multilingual forms and resources. Mike Monahan is the Director of the State Bar of Georgia's Pro Bono project and will cover the LEP-MCLE project that incorporates video and SMS tools from that project. Sandra Sandoval is here. She is the Field Support Coordinator at Immigration Advocates Network, and Sandra will be presenting on various technology tools to assist multilingual communities seeking to naturalize in the U.S. And finally, I'm Mirenda. I'm the LawHelp Interactive Program Coordinator at Pro Bono Net, and I'll be moderating. So just on a high level, here's what we'll be covering today. We'll hear about what types of tech tools are being incorporated in legal aid and court programs to serve LEP communities. We'll take a look at why technology is relevant and important in this context. And we'll also take some time to go over the challenges in creating and updating multilingual tech tools and hear from our panelists on some ways to address these challenges. So I just wanted to take a moment to define what we mean when we say LEP. We're talking about individuals who do not speak English as their primary language and who have a limited ability to speak, write, or understand English. LEP individuals may be entitled to language assistance with respect to particular types of services, benefits, or encounters under either federal law or local law. And as you probably know or can imagine, Spanish is by far the most spoken language other than English in the U.S., and the majority of LEP individuals are Spanish speakers. The next most spoken non-English languages are Chinese languages. So this is a significant portion of our population. Not every LEP individual has a legal need, but there are about 25 million people throughout the U.S. with limited English proficiency. So we're going to hear from the panelists today on their perspectives on how and why technology is used in their particular context and why it's important to use technology to serve LEP populations. But generally, innovations in technology can be used to determine LEP needs as well as provide actual service delivery, including language services. An interesting example is in the 9th Judicial Circuit in Florida, where there's a virtual remote interpreting system developed there that provides on-demand certified interpretation services for courts using live video and connected to web browsers from computers at remote locations. Tech tools can also be used to provide substantive information about legal rights and legal and administrative systems. And technology can be used inside and outside of court appearances and self-help centers, as well as hotline podcasts, online videos, accessible anywhere, etc. So when thinking about tech tools and resources for LEP communities, it's also relevant to think about how these tools will be shared with the community. So by that I mean thinking about strategies to develop partnerships with organizations that have relationships and proximity to LEP communities when implementing these tech tools. So this could be health clinics, law libraries, local media outlets, etc. So that's just sort of a really quick introduction of the issues and the presentations we'll hear today. I want to get out of the way so we can hear from the presenters. So I will turn things over to you, Rochelle, unless there's some initial questions.
Okay, can everyone hear me? My screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Good afternoon. I'm Rochelle Klempner. I'm Chief Counsel of the New York State Court's Access to Justice program, and I'm here to talk to you about the challenges of maintaining multilingual forms and resources, or as I like to call it, the nightmare. What I'm about to tell you is a true story, and I don't want to scare you out of creating forms and resources. I just want to make you look at things a little bit differently when you do. This is the story of the New York City tenant oral answer form. Here's the old form and the new form. In New York City, tenants must respond to a non-payment eviction proceeding within 5 days, and they can come to court and orally answer the petition. So this form was designed as a kind of cheat sheet for tenants to be able to tell the clerks their defenses. It's designed to be like ordering out of a takeout menu. You know, you could say, I'll have 3, 4, and 7, and then the clerk puts it on the file. So, of course, it's obviously very important that the text of the defenses matches the numbers that they're telling the clerk. So last year, Judge Fisher, who is actually the director of the New York State Court's Access to Justice program, she called me into her office and she told me that she had made changes to a number of the defenses, specifically 3, 8, 11, and 17. In fact, 11, which was public access Spiegel law defense, had been completely deleted and replaced by a new defense. And so she just, nonchalantly asked me to update any resources that these changes might affect. Now, Judge Fisher is a very, very smart woman, but I am sure that she had no idea when she asked me to do this of how many hours of...
Oh, no, I'm using. I've got these, but I'm using these. Yes.
I think someone needs to mute. I just heard somebody. So if everybody check if you're on *6, mute. So anyway, Judge Fisher asked me to make correct any other resources that might need to be updated to reflect these changes, and I did so, but it took me hours and hours and hours, and numerous employees, many hours and hours and hours as well. In fact, I even brought back a retired employee of the New York City Housing Court to help me with this project. So the first thing you have to do is think about what are the resources that could be impacted by when you make changes to language changes or form changes. And first, of course, other forms, possibly including document assembly programs, any written self-help materials for litigants like fact sheets or how-to guides, court employee or volunteer lawyer training materials might be impacted, any videos, web pages, slideshows, posters, flyers, shared data files, and of course, once you figure out all the possible places that are impacted, then you have to check whether any of these resources are in other languages. So I first started with the New York City Housing Court's website, and this website. It's a trilingual website. All the resources are available in English, Spanish, and Chinese. And I started looking for the resources on the website first that might need to be changed, because a good website should be like a virtual resource center, and it should have, all of your resources here. So I thought this would give you a good idea. I went to the topical section on answering a non-payment petition first. And when I checked here, I discovered that there was an instruction sheet, and that there were fact sheets, and that there was a document assembly program and a community seminar about defenses, and a written answer form as well, which all of these might need to be updated by the changes of the form. And like I said, it's a trilingual website, so I checked the Spanish topical section on answering a non-payment case and found that there were the same 5 resources existed in Spanish. And I checked the Chinese web and found that 4 of these resources existed in Chinese. So I first decided I'd listen to the community seminar video. So I watched the 26-minute video on non-payment proceedings, and luckily it did not need to be changed, because if it did, I would have had to have it edited, possibly re-recorded, and then change the written transcript, and I would have had to do this in the Spanish version, and I would have had to do this in the Chinese version as well. I next looked at the housing court fact sheets that were on the web, and we have them in English, Spanish, and Chinese. And if you remember earlier, I mentioned that Spiegel law defense. If you see here, there's a fact sheet on Spiegel law in all 3 languages. All of this needed to be edited and translated and replaced entirely. I then went to the publications page of the Housing Web, and of course there's a New York City tenant and answers, questions and answers about housing court publication. So when I checked that, I found that page 4 contained a nice, albeit now outdated, explanation of possible defenses, and page 5, in fact, had an actual copy of the non-payment answer form. So all of this was outdated now and needed to be changed. And because we're so efficient, there's a Spanish housing court guide and a Chinese housing court guide as well that needed to be translated and changed as well. I next looked at the document assembly program, and in New York we call our document assembly programs DIY forms. The front-end A2J text and programming had to be updated in numerous places, and then the Spanish A2J had to be programmed and translated and edited. Next, the English hot docs was updated, and then the Spanish hot docs was updated. And this particular program, it produces information sheets for each possible defense and counterclaim that it finds you may have, and the information sheets all had to be changed as well and then translated. And unfortunately, the information sheets were different from the fact sheets that I showed you earlier, and were different from the discussion of the defenses in the landlord-tenant guide that I showed you earlier. So all 3 resources about the same information needed to be changed. It would have been a lot better if, we had thought ahead and made those match. And get this, here's the best part.
Choose your gender.
Yes. The document assembly program also had audio, so we had to get a hold of the court employee who we had originally record the audio to come back in and record the changes and the new screens.
Indique su sexo.
And then we had to get the Spanish program audio re-recorded. I will tell you it's a very smart maintenance tip to have people do your voice work who are around and can come back and make changes when you need them. So once I finished looking at everything on the website, I felt that it was important to visit one of the clerk's offices. This is a picture of the display rack in the New York County L&T clerk's office. I wanted to see if there were any other resources that needed to be changed. And here the forms rack had the tenant guide, the oral answer, the written answer, and the instruction forms that we had changed. However, in addition to English, Spanish, and Chinese instructions, I found that they were also translated into Russian and Polish. So we needed to have these translated and disseminated as well. And what do you think was hanging on the wall in the clerk's office but a full-size poster of the oral answer form? Now you can't see too well here, but this is the full-size version of the tenant answer form in English, and over here we also had a full-size version of the tenant answer form that was bilingual in English and Spanish. So these needed to be changed and disseminated to all the New York City courthouses along with the new tenant guides and the new forms for the public. And the dissemination of new forms, as some of you know, is a tremendous and costly undertaking, especially if we had created a resource for all 62 counties in New York. I then visited the Help Center to take a look to see if any other resources needed to be changed there in addition to the fact sheets, instruction sheets, and court forms and L&T guides. And I found that there was a hard copy, a master book, a Help Center Resources Master Book. And this was in every Help Center. And if you notice on the front, it says that it's called the Resource Center here, and that's because several years ago we changed the name of the Help Center to Resource Center, from Resource Center to Help Center, and that also generated a tremendous amount of changes in signs and flyers and materials, and I guess we just never got around to changing the cover of the book. But what the cover of the book did for me was it made me realize that we have a hard copy of the book in a shared drive. And then that made me remember that we have shared drives where we need to change materials as well. And so when we changed the forms, we had to change the court employee staff share drive that employees use to download a PDF of any materials that they might need if they run out of hard copies. And then we also have an administrative drive where we share information and keep copies of old, outdated forms, and it's an archive kind of thing. And This way, nothing remains on only one person's computer. But what I realized, and what we're going to do in the future, is we're going to move our shared drive onto the internet, so that anytime, it'll point to the same materials that we upload on our website. And this way, if we make one change, we make it, on the web, we can make it in our shared drive as well. Lastly, I think I looked at training materials. Because the New York State Courts Access to Justice program runs both an advice-only and Lawyer for the Day volunteer lawyer program, we had to change the training materials here about the answer form for the participants in these programs, and the volunteer lawyers had to be notified and the materials changed. We have a new lay person program, the Court Navigator program, and the people that participate in this program had to be notified as well. Our training materials for various community groups had to be changed. And our training materials for our employees on the DIY form programs had to be updated, and all the participants notified. And that was a tremendous amount of work. So the changes to the form, this answer form, as you can see, had just an enormous impact on our existing resources in numerous places. And I want to try to recap and give you some tips that we learned from our experience. First of all, when something is changed, look for the effective resources on the website first. A good virtual library website will point you to most of your resources. Search the website for common terms. And when I say do a search on your website to find your resources, here this was an answer form, but don't only search for answer form, search for any other, things that could be affected. For example, in this we made changes to harassment and Spiegel law, and we searched for those terms as well. Put English clues in the comments lines in your HTML of your other language pages. And this is really important for people like me. I don't speak Spanish or Chinese, and if we didn't have some, English terms in the comments lines, it would have been much more difficult to find what needed to be changed. Of course, I'm talking about our old, outdated legacy website. A newer system, if you're just first creating a website, I would strongly recommend that you create it with, a resource that would ping you when you make a change in your sources that need to be changed in another language. Post all your PDFs online in one location, only once. Now, what I mean by this is if you are linking from your topical section to the tenant guide and you're linking from the publications page to your tenant guide, make sure that they're going to the same URL, and it's only up once. And I know that this might seem pretty rudimentary, but you would be surprised how often people mess this up. Use the same interpreter for all your translations. And I have to say, we run into this all the time, especially in Spanish. It drives us crazy. It seems that no two interpreters can agree on language. We'll translate one form, and then a new interpreter will come in to fix a certain line and say everything else is wrong in all the other paragraphs. And we have people changing language back and forth, and then your language is not consistent from your one guide to one fact sheet to one web page. So what you really want to do is you want to try to keep the same vernacular and keep using the same interpreter, preferably one who is creating the resources in plain language. I mentioned this earlier. Try to use someone for audio work that's accessible for future updates. We always use court employees, and hopefully ones that are not going anywhere. Because if I didn't, then I would have wanted to re-record the entire audio to make sure that it sounded consistent. I mentioned this earlier too. Use a cloud-based internal site for employee shared access that points the same PDFs for the public, so it'll cut down. You only have to change it in one place once. Don't have a tech person oversee the job. I apologize to all the tech people on this call, but my coworker, Sun Kim, who is a techie, when I told her that we were changing the tenant answer form, she said that she would have just looked for, answer, the term answer, and she would never have, found the Spiegel law fact sheets that also needed to be changed. And make sure you pass on institutional knowledge. As I mentioned, I brought in the first deputy of the housing court who had retired to help me find all the resources. You know, nothing should ever be in one person's knowledge. And I think the best way to take care of this is to make sure that you're always grooming people in your office, you know, on all the resources and everything that they need to know so they can, you know, move up and take your place. That's funny, Brian. Remember to tell all the players involved when changes are made. I have to say, my last tip, this is my last tip and probably the most important. You know, if you're the web person and you're making changes on the website or you're making changes in booklets or you're making changes in forms, you know, whatever it is you're doing, if you don't tell the people that are in your, you know, that deal with the public, you know, in my case, the clerks in the courtroom and the, you know, attorneys and personnel in the help centers, if you don't tell them, if you don't disseminate the resources properly, if you don't disseminate the resources to make sure that the people that are receiving them know what they're for and where to put them and to give them out and know the changes, then, you know, everything is going to be screwed up and all your hard work is really going to be for nothing. So I hope that when you're creating multilingual resources and forums, you keep some of this stuff in mind, because if you start out thinking this way about the maintenance, then it'll help you in the long run. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you. I think you're going to hear from Kathy now, who has actually a great solution. Kathy, here you go.
Okay, can people hear me?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Well, in Connecticut in 2012, we applied for and received a TIG grant for what we call our photonovela video project. And it turned out to be a whole lot more than that, because we were able to use the materials that we created in a number of different ways. Okay, this is what a photonovela looks like. So it's made of 3 different components, essentially, in our videos. We have the still photographs, we have the speech bubbles, and there's also an audio track that goes along with it. And the photonovela is actually, it's been around for quite a while. It has its roots in Latino culture, and it looks, as you saw, like a comic book. And this is what Rochelle is referring to. It's really easy to modify, because if your text, your language changes, you can literally just go in and alter the speech bubbles. So what we did was we created our the videos, and then we made PDFs out of them. And it's long been used in the healthcare environment. I think I mentioned that already. This is what one of the videos looks like. They're all posted on YouTube, and if people would like to link to them, they can go ahead and link to them on YouTube, or they could actually embed them on their own websites. The topics that we did, we were originally doing 5 of them, each of them in English and Spanish. We were doing the Family Medical Leave Act. We were doing one on special ed, one on overpayments, and the other 2, the Social Security and DV victims in federal housing. It turned out that the special ed really split better into 2 videos, and so did the SSDI and SSI. So we wound up with a total of 14 of them.
Just one second. The audio is going in and out a little bit. You may want to speak up just a little bit.
Okay. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. They were all put together by Kate Frank, who's our web manager, and she did a great job with them. She used Adobe Photoshop, Premiere, and a free program called Audacity. And the PDFs look like this. So there are 6 of the screenshots in each page of the PDFs that you can actually just print out. So it's very easy to create the PDFs after you've created the videos. And this is another one. Okay. what happened with the PDFs, we actually wound up with enough funds in the grant that we were able to get them translated into additional languages. And we also received some help from Xander Karsten at Pro Bono Net, and so they will all be available in English, Spanish, Portuguese, Polish, and Chinese. There's Chinese. So what we would like people to do is take advantage of the work that we've done. Really, that was one of our goals, is to get some material out there that not only is very helpful for clients, but we also chose topics that were federal in nature so that other legal aid programs could use the videos as is. But you can also change the text, change the audio, add slides of your own to localize it. You can download the PDFs from our site, post them on your own site. The photos and the rest of the assets Kate posted on sharelawvideo.org, so you can actually take the photographs that she had built, that she had done, and actually use them to create something entirely different. And you can print out the PDFs and put them in your waiting room, get them out to the community. Okay. Stateside Legal picked up the Family Medical Leave Act one and put it on their website because it's got a military component. This is one of the special ed ones. And this is the fun slide. You can actually, instead of taking what we've done, although we do, we'd love to see you use it, you can also make your own sort of photo novellas. There are movie-making software programs out there that are very helpful. Here are a couple. iMovie, that's for your Apple people. There's a Windows Movie Maker. You can do something like this in PowerPoint or Word. You can use Picasa. And Kate discovered that a lot of cell phones lately are really doing some very good audio. So you could actually hobble something together, and it wouldn't really be hobbled. It could come up very nice. Let's see. And the PDF versions, what you can do with them, it's really kind of nice if you print them out. And this is done a lot, again, with the healthcare people. They get them out in the community. They put them in community locations, church programs, other types of places where they'll be helpful. And again, they're really easy to update if laws change or you want to add content that's specific for you or stick in a local organization. And this is a few weeks old, but at this point, the videos have been viewed 3,500 times, and people have spent 10,000 minutes on them. So if you would like any more information, here's Kate's contact information and mine. And if you do decide to use them, we would love to hear from you what you're doing with them and if you're finding them helpful. So I guess that's it for me. Does anybody have
Okay.
We've got a question here on why did your program choose to use the photo novella format specifically. I'm not sure if that's targeted at the comment that I made in the chat over NJP doing that or over to you, but we definitely did it because the production time and editing is much, much, much easier than doing live action, and doing multiple formats or multiple languages is super easy. I mean, we had a very similar experience to what you had.
Yeah, and we actually, when we heard about you guys doing them. That was one of the things that prompted us to look into them, and we realized how useful they could be. So you actually led us to it.
Do you have a link that you could put into the chat where people can go view the videos? It doesn't have to be right away. If we can drop one in sometime during the webinar, then people could definitely go view them.
Okay, I will put one in. Yep.
Any other questions?
Hi, this is Sandra, just making sure everyone can see my screen.
Yep, Sandra,
yes.
Okay. Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sandra Sandoval. I am the Field Support Coordinator at Immigration Advocates Network, and I just briefly want to talk to you about our program Citizenship Works and how we use it to assist naturalization applicants. Just as an overview, I'm going to go over what is Citizenship Works, what our program does, and then just a couple of online tools that our program uses, as well as other resources such as our mobile app, as well as a text campaign and LawHelp that we have. So just briefly, Citizenship Works, the goal is to help potential applicants both learn about their naturalization eligibility as well as the naturalization process. So we really want to empower individuals who are seeking to apply for naturalization. A lot of the time, many apply on their own and may not know exactly what to expect, and some may seek legal assistance. But some find that they may not be able to afford private attorneys, and so we work also with nonprofit advocates and legal service providers who assist naturalization applicants, and we provide them with tools as well to provide an efficient and effective way of helping people apply for naturalization. So Citizenship Works, and that's just exactly what I said. So it's just to help empower naturalization applicants and legal service providers. But Citizenship Works works in two platforms. One is the public page, and one is the advocate page. So right here you're seeing the public page of Citizenship Works, and everyone has access to the materials on our page, and some of them include information about naturalization, preparing for an exam, finding legal help, and we have the page available in English, Spanish, Chinese, and Vietnamese at the moment. And the information that I will show in the next couple of slides is available in all of these languages. And just a little bit of context as to citizenship and naturalization. So one of the things that applicants will encounter while they are applying for naturalization is that they do have to take a history and civics test in English if they meet those requirements. But we do like to provide the legal information in multiple languages, mainly because we feel that because it is technical and can be difficult to understand in English, and it is a higher perhaps level of vocabulary than it is actually necessary, that is necessary for the test. That is why we provide the information in multiple languages. So that's usually a question that we get. But on to some of the resources that are on the page. One of them is this public eligibility screening tool. So again, this is available in all 4 languages. And what this screening tool does is it presents some questions that are included in the naturalization form in an interview platform. So the person would just fill out some basic information and answer some questions about eligibility, and they would receive or generate this page on the right where it's an information sheet. And depending on how the person answers these questions, they'll receive information about their eligibility, about things that could be potential red flags, whether it's crimes or citations, maybe number of trips that they've taken. But this, again, is available for the potential applicant in their language. Another thing that we have on our website are e-learning modules. These are just short videos that sort of do like a step-by-step of both the naturalization process and a naturalization test. Again, these are available in multiple languages. As you see here on the left, this is our overview of citizenship through naturalization. So this will take the applicant or user on the website through a step-by-step guide from what they should expect while they're applying all the way till up until they were to take their oath. And it just goes over many steps of naturalization. And again, we have this here. It is in Vietnamese, and it's to provide the information in the language that the person is most comfortable in. So here is just an overview of our naturalization test e-learning module. Here, people would be able to see, what they can expect. Not so much, what questions, but what the naturalization test entails, from having to write sentences in English to having to answer, multiple questions about civics and history. So here again, it really does go through just the components of the naturalization test in the different languages. Another feature that we have online is the LawHelp. So if someone were to log in or go to citizenshipworks.org, and they can see these 2 icons. One would be available on the English platform and the other on the Spanish platform. This is not available in either Chinese or Vietnamese. But what this allows us to do is to provide sort of real-time guidance through our website. This is not legal help. This is not substituting legal help, and we do not provide legal help through this live help chat, but we do help people navigate through our website, as well as if they are seeking legal help, help them find a legal service provider, a nonprofit legal service provider in their area. We do get some individuals who may not be as familiar with either the website or how to work through the programs, but we are there to provide that assistance in both English and Spanish, just in case it's needed. And then one other resource, and this resource is available to advocates through Citizenship Works. So currently we work with a couple of collaborative groups that provide legal services and assistance for immigration and naturalization in particular. And what it allows us to do is we, much like the public screening eligibility tool, where the person is able to, go through the questions, the screening tools for the advocates allows them to provide these interviews for the applicant that would generate the actual form. So, for instance, here we have the N400 interview. Currently, it's available only in English, but we are working to provide the interview in Spanish. And we also have interviews for the I-912, which is the request for fee waiver tool. And this is the application that people can use to apply for the fee waiver that would waive, the $680 that a person would pay for naturalization. I'll show you a little bit of what this looks like. I'm going to click yes. Ooh, I think
I'll pass
I
it
did
back.
something. Apologies.
Oh, I lost you. Hang on.
Sure. There we go. So I believe I'm back on. So these advocate resource tools, these are interviews. Again, these actually generate the form, either the N-400 application for naturalization form or the I-912 form. And it's the same format, the same interview format. For the N-400, the person would answer the questions for the N-400 application. So not only would they answer questions that are directly from the form, but they would also answer questions that would provide an advocate, a legal advocate, more context and information about the person. In particular, how they became permanent residents, what specific crimes they may have committed, if their parents were citizens. So just additional follow-up questions that both help not only generate the form, but also help advocates, have more context about the person. And then the I-912, as I mentioned, is the fee waiver. So in the same format, the person would enter and answer these questions. Now, the I-912 is available in Spanish, and what this does is a person would receive the questions in Spanish, and then they would answer all of the questions in Spanish. However, when the form generates, it would generate in English. So the person wouldn't see, the questions or the form in English as they're completing the interview, but at the end, when they print it out, the form would actually be in English. Again, just as a reminder, we do this so that the person is comfortable filling out the form in their language and actually understanding, the legal technicalities. Some things don't translate, where I guess as they're answering, if they were answering in English, maybe they wouldn't understand them as well as they do in their native language. So we definitely try to provide that platform for them. And then I'll move on to some of our other resources for citizenship works that we hope do help, people with limited English proficiency. One of them is our mobile app. So our Citizenship Works mobile app sort of has the same goals as the website itself, with the exception that it does not have, an interview in it. But through the mobile app, the person, either in English or Spanish, they would receive information about naturalization. So information about, age requirements, as well as information about, if they meet English exemptions. And we also have naturalization test material. So here, this actually wouldn't be in English, in Spanish, because the test is in English, so we want to help people really practice their English and practice the material if that's in the language they are getting tested on. So we have three different study tools. We have the Civics Test, we have the English Reading Test, and the English Writing Test. And I'll show you a little bit of what this looks like. So the Civics Test includes the 100 civics questions, and these are of course from the list of questions that the USCIS officer would potentially ask the person as part of their test, and they're in a flashcard sort of platform. The person would answer the question and either indicate if it, they answered it correctly or incorrectly, and they can keep, tabs of what and how they've answered.
Okay, we've got a few questions here.
Okay.
One of them being, are there any differences in ease of use of technology for different language groups, and does this differ for expectations, design, technology? Are you basically providing the same regardless of group, or is there any customization between them?
I'm sorry. So if there's any difference in customization, in what sense?
So is there any demographic information that you use showing that different groups may prefer different technologies, layouts, styles, and then customize or change based on that? Or is the same technology just being offered with a different translation to each population?
Okay, so right now, sort of it's the same technology is being used just on, in different languages. With the partners that we work with, we try to get feedback as to perhaps, how the population they work with respond to the tools. But right now, we really just provide the platform in different languages. For sure, Spanish is one of the languages that is used widely, so that's why we're working on the Spanish interview. But like I said, we usually check feedback from our partners and see what would be the next language to use or to move forward with.
Does this include document assembly as part of it?
So I guess in the sense that the person, like I had mentioned, right, would answer the questions in their language, and then the form would actually print out in English. And
okay.
then if there needs to be edits, then the advocate would go through their advocate account and be able to make the changes. I mean, they would make the changes on an English format. But
and then you have a maintenance cost whenever USCIS changes the forms and have to go back through and change all of the apps. What is the cost on doing that? Is it
I actually
you can get an in-house techie to do, or?
I don't have the exact figures, but for instance, with the update to the program, with the recent update to the form, we did have to update our, our program and interviews. So that is why we're sort of slowly moving and transitioning on to other languages. But yeah,
so that's definitely a cost that a program needs to budget in when they're doing something like this.
Yes. I don't know if there was another question. But and I should say,
there was a question over your process for checking for accuracy. Are there checkboxes in the form? How is the translation from Spanish to English checked for accuracy? What's kind of your work process of doing that?
So we work with, an organization that sort of, provides the translations. And then in working, we really do depend a lot on the partners that we work with. So we would, for instance, in moving on to the Spanish interview, we would review it with our partners and, try to get some feedback as to, does this make, is this in the context of, the person's understanding, does this make sense? Or should, it be edited to mean something else? Or so we really do depend a lot on the feedback from our partners.
Yeah, so for example, when we were doing similar video translation work at Northwest Justice Project, we sent it out to an outside translator, got the used the script for the videos. Then we used Google automatic translate or automatic speech to text to get in our synced up copy with those videos, and then we had a high school student go through with the script and make edits to improve on top of Google's. So we had several different layers that we went through in that process.
And I think another resource that we definitely have is ILRC tends to publish material in different languages. So like the forms, they'll publish sort of a draft form, right, of what it would translate into, sort of to just help provide services. So we definitely do rely on, resources such as that. I don't know if there were any other remaining questions.
So there was another one. Is there anything in the application that tries to identify red flags or give the user? I'm not familiar with this particular area of law, but the question is, could someone produce and print an N-400 on their own without review by attorney or qualified advocate?
Okay. They actually can't. So that's why, like, as advocate resources, so these are available through the nonprofit partners that we work with across the country. And the person would have to either go to, this organization's office or to their event and use a program there. And then it would get reviewed by an attorney. So that's why, like, in our public platform, the person doesn't generate an N-400. They generate an information sheet that just provides them with information about their eligibility. As we move forward through, like, we're transitioning onto a new platform for Citizenship Works, where the person that wants to apply would actually begin the application process, begin answering the questions, but at the end they would have to go through, they would still have to go through a legal review.
Okay. Given the interest of time, we're going to hold off on more questions until we make it through Mike's section, but we do have one or two more that are coming in that I will try to flag and get back to.
Okay. So then I'll just briefly go over these remaining slides. So for studying for the English reading portion of the naturalization test, we do have, as part of the app, a study tool that pretty much dictates the question to the person. And the person would, play the audio and practice that way. So for instance, on this slide where it says, what country is north of the U.S. or the United States, the person would repeat it and then, play it to see if they are actually saying the phrase correctly. And then for the English writing, it's very similar. The person would be able to play the audio and then type in the sentence and then verify if what they typed in was correct. And just briefly, the Citizenship Works mobile app is actually free to download, and you can download it on both iOS and Android platforms. Again, it's free at no cost. And there are definitely other features of the app, such as trips calculators and saving calculators that help ease the process. And then finally, we have one of our texting campaigns, the one that is available in both English and Spanish at the moment, is a texting campaign that allows people to find legal help in their area. The person would text the word citizenship or ciudadanía to this short code, and then they would find, or they would receive, a listing of a nonprofit organization in their area. And the nonprofit organizations that the person would receive is directly linked to our legal directory of nonprofit organizations that provide naturalization services around the U.S. So I don't know if anyone has any other further questions, or we could definitely leave them for after.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and move on to Mike Monahan, and then Sandra will get to any additional questions at the end.
Sure.
Hi, this is Mike Monahan. I'm the director of the State Bar's Pro Bono Project, which is a joint project of Georgia Legal Services and the State Bar. It's about a 33-year-old project, so I'm a legal aid plant in a State Bar world, and I work on a number of things, including technology and our websites. And we've developed a program in conjunction with Georgia Legal Services program on increasing access to court interpreter information, so that lawyers, advocates in Georgia courts and administrative bodies can get access to information on how to get an interpreter when one is needed, free of charge at the cost of the courts or the administrative body. So what we have done is, and let me switch over here. Let me first of all explain a little bit that we in Georgia, we've got 159 counties, and nearly every one of them has a fairly decently sized Latino population. Some have a very large Latino population. Georgia used to be 7th or 8th in the nation in migrant farm worker population. I don't know if that's still true. Many of whom have settled out and are now opening little mom-and-pop shops, or have opened little mom-and-pop shops, stores, restaurants, etc., in rural areas and small cities. So they often have legal problems, and we still run into a number of clients across the state who have limited English proficiency, or are fairly proficient in English, but not so much as to have the capacity to really feel very comfortable in a court setting or an administrative setting to explain their problem, to tell their story accurately and with force. And so interpreters are frequently still needed. And it's especially so in the metro Atlanta area, which has a very, very large Latino population and other language populations as well. We took a mobile approach, and what we wanted to do is show my screen here. Where are we here? Create a set of resources for lawyers and advocates who are on the fly, who show up in a courtroom and realize, oh, gee, I need an interpreter for this client, or we need an interpreter for this witness. So we have, over the past couple of years, developed within Georgia Legal Services Program a really large body of LEP content for advocates. And we've housed it on our websites and on our media server and another number of other places, and we decided to lock it all up in one place and make it available mobily, because, as we said, a lot of lawyers are on the run and have access to can have access to documents while they're waiting in the courtroom, while they're waiting outside the courtroom, or on the drive to, while they're parked in their car in a parking lot, not driving and texting. But anyway, you can simply text interpreter to 99699 and get a complete set of all of our interpreter resources. So that's 9969 is the number. Interpreter, yeah, safety first. Interpreter is the key word that we use. And what you're looking at right now on my screen is a really simple admin area for our text landing site. Now, the landing site is simply a place where we can go and corral the resources that we have in other places on the web. So we're not administering the resources themselves on the site. We're not creating the video, not creating the PDF file, whatever it happens to be. We're just calling it up from other places and staging it here. This is a simple tool that we use called Mobile Zen. There are others out there that you can find. But as you can see here, you just can add a text box or an image or a link or an email call up here, a line, a map, coupons. Well, you wouldn't have coupons, but you could create some sort of contest perhaps, forms, etc. And then you can reorder them up and down depending on where you want them, change the font. But this is a really simple approach that costs $10 a month on a month-to-month basis. So if we don't like it, we can change it quickly. If we don't like it at all, we can abandon it. But it's a good place to start for us. What we have here is a motion for an interpreter, all these are PDFs. So you can call up on your smartphone a PDF motion for an interpreter at no cost. You can get the brief in support of the motion for the certified interpreter, plus the exhibits all right here. And I should probably use some kind of marker. Let's say annotate. And let's use a marker right here. There we go. So you can get the motion, the brief in support of exhibits. We have an order online. We also have a motion for an interpreter for an administrative hearing, the order for the administrative hearing as well. We include the interpreter's oath so the lawyer advocate can take a look at that. And we also have a link back to a website where we have all these resources plus many, many more. We found it's been really useful because lawyers, once they text interpreter to 9969, they get a little message on their smartphone, of course, which says, welcome. To access these resources, click this link, and it pulls up this view right here on their smartphone. So then they're able to click through each one of these. And it also leaves behind on the lawyer's or advocate's smartphone the chat conversation, so they can always go back to it and find it unless they clear their chats. But it's a simple process to pull it back in and keep it on your smartphone. So it's easy to keep on the run. And if a lawyer just happens to have print to go on their smartphone, a print to go app, then they can print all these documents out on the printer, on an available printer. The target audience, as I said, of course, is volunteer lawyers and our own advocates across the state. It's a great support tool for volunteer lawyers because if you want to try to refer pro bono cases for limited English proficient clients, you can send this resource out with that case and say, in case you need an interpreter for any of the witnesses or for this client, please feel free to access our resources, and it's been very useful in that regard. All of these resources have been developed within Georgia Legal Services Program, and most of which under a special grant that we receive from a local funder whose name I'm not allowed to say. I can say they give us $1 million for every 3 years. They've done that twice so far to run a Latino project. And so we're trying to, look at ways to beef up these things and keep them, going to our target audience. Now, one of the key interesting things that we've got on here is also, let me go back to, I got to click back to my annotate and go back. Oop. My pointer here. Now, we developed a community education, a continuing legal education program, and we've posted 2 videos through the texting application to the landing site, which allows you to watch the CLE program on your smartphone, and we've also included a CLE self-reporting affidavit that the lawyer can download and fill out to verify that he or she has attended the CLE program that they viewed online. It's also been a good resource in recruiting lawyers because you can offer a simple $5 per credit hour CLE program, which is a great incentive to represent clients or to learn about our own legal aid and public service issues. Now, the admin tool itself, as I showed before, is a pretty simple admin tool to use. It's low cost. It's easy to modify. You can change any of these things at any time. Where we're going next is really with this is trying to figure out how to make this perhaps maybe a mobile site rather than an app and sort of make it a lot prettier, even though pretty matters, I know. Context matters. The environment in which information sits is really important. So we're looking at perhaps a mobile site, which is slightly more expensive on a monthly fee, but again on a month-to-month. What this is really a proactive approach, I think, to LEP services. It underscores and provides a foundation for the work that we really want to do and have done across the state. One of the important things we need to do next on the next steps is create a marketing plan to make sure that it gets out even further out into the legal world, into the court system than it is right now. We have a house ad, which is, oops, wrong place, sorry. Where are you here? My Adobe. We have a house ad for our pro bono landing site. So we're going to create a house ad, and a house ad is simply something that you can hand off to a magazine or newspaper to stick in that's standard and ready and available for you to use. The other thing is we want to include in here as a next step, a survey or a poll about the usefulness so that we can include a link for feedback from the user of the system to come back to us and say, we liked it, we didn't like it, it helped, it didn't help. This resource could be better if changed this way. We need to figure that piece of the puzzle out, but we'd love to do that. And we'd also like to increase and create a membership around this resource so that you could sign up to become a member and receive monthly practice news about LEP issues and or practice alerts as they become available about LEP practice. So that's it in a nutshell on our LEP model. And I've got my eyeglasses here, reading glasses. Any questions?
It looks like we do have a few, Mike. One of them is from Claudia Johnson. She asked whether this resource that you have available up on the screen right now is available to any Georgia Bar member.
Yes, when we first launched it, we actually, in back-to-back months, we sent out it was a press release on it was included in the Bar E-News, which went out to about 40,000 bar members. So we're trying to make it available that way. The court system, the courts were involved in the CLE program itself. Two of our Supreme Court justices and an appeals court judge were involved in the CLE as presenters, and the court system is well aware of it, and we're trying to hand it to judges as well so that they're prepared to see what's going to be coming to them. But we definitely need to develop a marketing plan to make sure that it stays front and center in the attention of lawyers across the state. That's hard to do and requires commitment. And I think if we create one of the ideas is, of course, to create sort of a meme, a Facebook, a social media meme around this, so that you can post it in multiple places, have people sharing it, get the information out that way, and also regular basis go back to the Bar E-News to remind lawyers around the state that this resource is there for them. We have not shared it with the State Paralegal Association yet. We need to do that. So, there are many ways to sort of get at this, and we need to get serious about it.
Great. If there are any more questions, please feel free to type them in. I just wanted to return to one quick question for Sandra regarding, I think, some of the forms. This was asked by Rochelle. And Rochelle, feel free to unmute yourself if I'm not asking this correctly. But there was a question about when the forms are filled out by the user on a non-English form, and then it's translated to English on the form herself. She was trying to understand if you could talk a little bit more about how that translation happens, if you could talk a little bit about that process.
Sure. So the way it works is the person would sit through, for instance, the Spanish interview, and they would answer questions in Spanish. Now, those questions would actually, I guess, how can I put it? The answers that are generated, so the answers that are entered into the interview itself, when the form is generated, it sort of the information would lay on top of an English form, an English N400. So it's, I don't know if I'm sort of explaining that correctly, but the information that is entered would then be sort of transferred onto an English N400 form. Not, the questions wouldn't be retranslated again. Or
it looks like we've got another question from Susan, who said, thanks for addressing this. Many of our texters use non-standard Spanish with lots of abbreviations. Can this be translated? I don't know if that's aimed to anyone in particular, Susan. Again, if you're asking questions, if you want to elaborate, feel free to press *6 to unmute yourself to clarify a bit more. Does any of our panelists, I think that this was aimed at Sandra.
Sure. So let me just review the question again. I guess, is this for the texting campaign? In that sense, the way our texting campaign works, even in Spanish, is it'll ask you like specific, to provide a specific response. So it'll ask, for instance, for your zip code, or if you need assistance. That's pretty much just how our current campaign works. So there wouldn't be sort of a need to enter additional text other than what is asked, or the keywords that are provided. I
also just wanted to let people know that there are links in the chat, both to the slides and also to a very short 5-question survey about this webinar. Any feedback is greatly appreciated.
Looks like we've got another question from Claudia, asking the panelists to talk about cost or marginal cost of doing LEP tech modifications. And don't forget, if you're a panelist, to remember to hit *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, it's Rochelle. We try never to spend any money on anything. So we most of our LEP tech modifications are done by getting volunteers or partners, or using our own staff. We don't really spend a lot, but as you see, we have a lot of problems.
This is Mike from Georgia Legal Services has probably 10 or 11 people in a work group called the Latino Working Group, and most of whom are native speakers or others with degrees in Spanish or literature. And so among all of us, we crowdsource most of the translations. It starts with 2 paralegals, and then we crowdsource it for a day or two, and then we produce a document. And then a couple of us look at it for refinement at the very end. 3 of us have degrees in Spanish or languages generally, and so we check for register and voice, that kind of thing. So, and the vernacular. Sometimes the vernacular is good to have. It's good to have everyday language in documents, but sometimes you can catch people translating things and not notice that sometimes a word choice is the connotation is not quite right to be used for something produced by a legal aid program. So we crowdsource everything, so we keep the money in-house. What we do spend sort of indirectly is that we have a wage bump up for staff members who have other language capacity and use it. So we test and then we pay them extra for the language capacity in-house.
Yeah, there really is that administrative coordination time, even when you're using volunteers that or in-house that you really need to consider.
All right, so we'll wait a minute to see if there are any more questions that come through.
There's a question about the cost of mobile Zen.
Oh, that is a cheap $10 a month, month to month. There is a mobile site, which is a next appearance package up, which is $20 a month per keyword. Very similar operation, very similar admin side, but quite a bit more functionality, and the graphics are much, much nicer. So it's either $10 a month or $20 a month. We get it for pro bono right now because I signed up for it, strangely enough. You never know who your friends are. I signed up for the Mobile Zen service, and about a day later, I get an email from a lawyer saying, "Thanks for using my service." Well, apparently Mobile Zen is owned by a lawyer, and I didn't know that. And he was glad to see pro bono on using his system, and he's now on our Access to Justice Committee to help us with technology. So you never know where you're going to find your friend. So I suggest that you look around for products that might be developed by lawyers.
And it's only the monthly cost? There is no cost per text sent or anything?
There is no cost per text. It's monthly, the one monthly administration fee.
Nice. That's very reasonable.
Now, the step up, the $20 a month, does have charges for text, and you can also include other kinds of incentives for participation in the service and buying. You can purchase sort of add-ons in that system, in that environment. I do use that on a limited basis for one of my keywords. Oh, and by the way, if you're thinking about texting or using mobile, we have a grant right now, an NLC Technology Initiative grant, in which we've used a marketing company to help us figure out how to market a texting service, a service that texts out legal information. And we've developed a toolkit, and that toolkit will be shared with the entire legal services community free of charge. And so it will tell you how to develop this and how to develop a marketing campaign around text messaging of legal information and legal resources.
I definitely look forward to seeing that on the LS Tech email list, and I'd be happy to add it to our library. There are definitely a lot of people who are giving that a shot and have no idea where to go on it. So,
can I ask a question?
Go for it.
Okay, so I was actually texting at Susan with the Self-Help Center in Utah. Hello, everyone. My question is this: if you have a program that allows people to create their legal documents by answering questions in their own language and typing in the answers in their own language, and it's translating it into English to create an English form. My question was, most of the people who text or email us in Spanish use their Spanish is so hard to understand. It's non-traditional. They're using lots of abbreviations. How does that, if I put that in Google Translate, I would end up probably with gibberish in English.
Hi, this is Sandra. I can answer that, I guess, in terms for Citizenship works. So really the way Citizenship works is, so any questions that have to be, or answers that have to be typed in usually revolve around answers like full name, address, country the person traveled to, any sort of dates that, the form asks for, those are provided as a drop-down box. And then any other questions from the form are usually asked in a yes or no format, like have you committed a crime, yes or no. So they're more sort of like these button kind of, multiple choice questions. So the person doesn't really need to sort of explain. And that, of course, is, if they do need to explain, then they can type in an explanation. And the way it works is because we work with, legal service provider partners, they have access to these answer files, and then they can go in and make changes, either enter complete sentences or make any edits in spelling and stuff like that. So, but most of the questions are yes or no questions because that's how the N400 is mostly formatted, with exception of, what is your address and, what is your full name or your spouse's name or your child's name.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I think that covers our webinar today. I want to thank everybody so much for coming out, especially our speakers. I greatly appreciate it. We should have the video up for this within about a week on our YouTube channel. I will be dropping a link into the chat here in a second. We also have another webinar coming up in 2 weeks, case studies of web analytics, and about 90% of our schedule all the way through December is up online on our training site. Jillian, did you have any final words?
The only thing is, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Brian or myself. And there's Brian's contact information. And just one more reminder, don't forget to take the feedback survey. Thank you all so much.
The YouTube channel has about 35 of our past trainings up there currently, along with a bunch of other videos. Thank you guys all for showing up. Please feel free to contact me if you've got any questions or need any help.